Hey, what is up, family? It is your friendly neighborhood blur, the Fallen Marvel, and albeit late, welcome to my review of Shazam Fury of the Gods. I unfortunately was not able to give my thoughts when it first dropped, but here I am now after recently going on digital, and I have thoughts. And of course, with the usual structure, you will get the good, the bad, my overall, and everything in between, and then my score. So let's go ahead and dive into Shazam 2 or Shazam Fury of the Gods, whichever one you want to go with. And yeah, let's go. I think this movie had a really strong opening with getting the ball rolling on what the main baddies are trying to do and kind of setting up the tone of what the danger level is and all of that. It has a really strong opening, I think, on both sides between the good guys and the bad guys. So I definitely give it some points for really trying to set you up for the adventure that's about to take place with the bad guys and the Shazam family. The costume design in this definitely improved over the first. It makes sense that this movie probably has a larger budget than the first movie. So just about everyone's costume design, I think, was fairly impressive. Like everybody looked good. And another thing is that the effects looked a lot cleaner in this movie versus the first one because Warner Brothers always had this thing about having grainy special effects for some reason. I can't explain why, but it always seemed grainy. It was never really crisp or clean or anything like that. So this movie had a lot the effects were a lot cleaner. Some of the action set pieces were actually pretty cool in this. I think compared to the first one, the action was a lot more hard hitting and a lot more fun. And whenever they were doing things as far as displaying strength, they showed it in this film. So I do think that was a good way to go if you're going to demonstrate how strong your characters are. I always forget the name of the actor, but the kid that plays Freddy in this, I feel, was the best by far as everyone goes, especially in regards to the Shazam family when they're not using their Shazam powers. He seemed to be like the heart in this movie, even though, he has that whole superhero fanboy thing going. And of course, like, he's trying the best to make full use of his powers and all of that. So you kind of see that kind of come full circle with him realizing the responsibility he has and all the little stuff that he kind of is going through. So he's the best thing in this movie. And that's all I really got. This movie had a lot of problems for me. So without stalling any further, let's just talk about what I didn't like. Where do I start? Even with them having a fairly decent setup at the beginning where you have this big threat with the bad guys and then you have the good guys kind of like, having these powers, doing their thing for the past 2 years, but now they're kind of growing and sort of kind of doing their own thing. Even with that set up, they don't follow through with it throughout the rest of the movie, really. It's like they have the initial setup and it's going good, and then after that, stuff just starts happening. Even with the talent like Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu being in this movie, they came off as just really generic villains. Now, you can argue that Mark Strong's Dr. Savannah was really generic in the first movie, but Mark Strong is a good enough actor to where he can kind of spin the generic makings of his villain and still come off as pretty entertaining. So he still did his thing in the first movie. Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu, they didn't they couldn't do that with what they were given in this movie, in my opinion. And then there's the dialogue. Boy, the dialogue. Much of the dialogue in this comes off as really lazy and uninspired, and it just boils down to them relying on gags that, unfortunately, this movie has a habit of doing gags that run too long. That's pretty much burned in my brain forever. Oh, yeah, the wizard's back, by the way. That, among many things, they kind of just gloss over because the story as it continues becomes a bit more convoluted, and it just really seems like they're just trying to do stuff and kind of rely on superficial things to kind of keep the audience engaged. But at its core, it just it's a movie that is with stuff happening in it when it's all said and done. The movie continues to gloss over a lot of finer points of character building. They focus on a really needless romance angle, and it just becomes this really convoluted mess of a story, and it just is what it is, really. And on top of that, it just seems the entire movie pauses for product placement. And it's just, if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And honestly, if you just take that part out of it, it affects nothing else in the story at all. My final thoughts on this movie is it's really a generic superhero film that tries to do a lot and accomplishing nothing at the same time. There are some moments that you can have fun with, and I know a lot of people, they would give that as a saving grace that they probably had fun with it and thought it was funny and things of that nature. It's like, look, I got a couple of chuckles, but my main thing is, will this story come together? And in my opinion, it did not. And there have been people that have been arguing that, of course, the main characters are kids. So you're going to expect kid stuff. I'm sorry, that's not an excuse. There are plenty of things that have featured kids as the main focus, whether they're adults playing kids or whatever the case may be. There have been plenty of examples that have worked really well, okay? I'm sorry, this ain't one of them, okay? This movie, in my opinion, lacked a certain charm that the first movie had. And even with that being said, it's like they wanted to focus so much on being very humorous. Even with it's a tonally conflicted movie on top of it, but it's like the key issue between the actor that plays young Billy and Zachary Levi as adult Billy. There's still a starking contrast between the personalities. Like in the movie, Billy is supposed to be 17 going on 18, but when he's Zachary Levi, he's acting like he's 12 going on 13. And it's so off-putting and irritating. And it's just like, okay, I'm sorry, this is not working. It's not. Now, with all that being said, this movie gets a not so marvelous score of 3 out of 10. I really wanted to enjoy this movie just off the strength that I enjoyed the first one. But this is just yet another example of sequelitis, and it's quite disappointing. I know there's quite a bit of the audience that enjoyed it. That's fine. That works for you. That is perfectly okay. I'm just trying to speak objectively. To me, this movie just was not it based on what they gave us the first go round. And these companies are going to have to learn that they have to have plans when they do these things, all right? Just it at the very least, have a plan. Just have a plan. Know what you want to do with your product. That's all we ask. So everyone, that does it for my review of Shazam, Fury of the Gods. I'm sure a good portion of you have seen it by now, so you can leave your comments down below. Tell me what you thought of the movie yourself. Did you agree with my view? Did you disagree? Such and such, whatever. Just have at it. We can have a discussion. So yeah, that will do it for me with this review. So until next time, keep following my advice to go nerd, but nerd responsibly. This is your boy, The Fall of Marvel. I will check with you guys later. Peace and hair grease. I'm out. Deuces.